Canada is the second largest country in the world, a vast land with a huge capacity to attract tourists to its wild and beautiful spaces. But many Canadians will tell you tourists you have often seen more of their country than they have, because domestic flights have always been so expensive.
Now finally, it seems that could be changing. New budget airlines are taking flight across the country, but that's also bringing up new issues, especially in the smaller communities those budget airlines will serve.
Air Canada has been the country's dominant airline since it was set up in 1937. The national airline was privatized more than 25 years ago. It's no longer a nationally subsidized airline.
No one's forced to fly us. We're very pleased that we capture a very large share of the market, but this is a totally deregulated market, and we have to compete for every single customer that chooses us.
17 years ago, WestJet flew into the picture, bringing more choice and lower prices. But many say that's still not enough.
We don't have enough competition. Our distances are great, but we also cannot get, I've never been to the east coast of Canada, but I've flown to South America, to, all over Asia, all over Europe, and flights are equivalent to flying across the country here.
When I just went to New Orleans in January, I saved about $900 driving to Seattle instead of flying out of YVR Airport in Vancouver, and it was a 2-hour drive. Parking was $135, and I saved $900, so I'll do it every time.
There's just not enough competition in Canada, and so we really get gouged for our airfares. There's no other way to put it. We are being gouged.
There is growing competition between the big two. In June, WestJet launched a new low-budget airline called Encore. It's focused on the country's smaller regional markets, traditionally the domain of Air Canada.
These are communities which, if they currently have air service, they probably only have one carrier, and they are paying exorbitant airfares right now because there is only one. So what we've said is we're going to come into those communities with discounts of up to 50% of what they're currently paying.
Prices have dropped by a couple $100 for a 4.5-hour flight from Toronto to Vancouver in summer, but it still costs around $800. That's left room for some small competitors to spread their wings, like Ontario's Porter Airlines.
Porter Airlines, which flies out of the Billy Bishop Toronto City Airport, has the other Canadian airlines watching them very closely. They have some ambitious plans to bring more competition into the market.
Those plans include more than doubling their fleet of 26 jets and aiming some of the new aircraft at passengers in Western Canada. The company is already creating fans on flights to remote places in Northern Ontario, like Timmins. A return flight to Toronto of just over an hour cost Peggy Claveau less than $300.
On average, airfare prior to Porter coming on board in Timmins was about $800 one return flight.
So it's kind of changed your life.
It has. It's great. I hope that Porter has plans on staying for a long time, actually.
Now people in remote communities across the rest of Canada are being targeted by the big airlines too. Last year that brought the air war between Air Canada and WestJet to the Yukon. And it caused great worries over collateral damage, especially in one small community, a community that has invested heavily in its own airline, Air North.
Because there are no roads into the community, the only way to move people in and out of the community is by air. And you have to consider everything from food to lumber to fuel. Everything has to be flown in.
The Vuntut-Gwitchin First Nation, based in a northern community in the Yukon called Old Crow, owns almost half the shares in Air North. That might sound risky, but it gives the community of 350 some control of a vital service. In fact, about 1 out of every 15 people in the Yukon holds shares in Air North. So it's not just First Nations who believe something important is at risk in the aerial turf war.
If we didn't have Air North, I'd be devastated, for one, because I don't like flying Air Canada, and so that would be my only other choice, because WestJet's only here in the summer.
I think lots of Yukoners would actually be willing to pay a little bit more just to patronize and to fly on Air North, because they're just like family, and you feel like family when you're flying with them.
As the war between the airline giants heats up, Air North is getting squeezed. Too many seats being offered, too many planes flying half empty, and unlike the other airlines, Air North can't offset losses in the north with more lucrative flights elsewhere.
I described the results last year as being a battle we survived, not a war that we won, because, here it is round 2. and we're back for some more.
Air North survives by matching every seat sale, aided by a reputation as the homegrown success story that can be held to account if prices get too high.
People would be phoning us at home. It's a small town. They know where we live.
For now, Air North's hope is that some kind of deal can be struck, that they can partner with WestJet or Air Canada to provide flights in the Yukon.
You know, they can still fly their flag in the north, but we need to convince them that at the end of the day, they're going to be better off to work with us than to try to step on us.
Air North claims it has reached out to Air Canada and WestJet to propose an air alliance, but so far there hasn't been an agreement. Until then, the Yukon Airline and other small independent Canadian airlines alike will have to count on the loyalty of locals to sustain their businesses until the air wars in these smaller markets are over.